How to start this? I know that many Warframe players, new and old, are excited and simultaneously confused because the way Warframe chooses to tell its stories becomes increasingly enigmatic. I suppose that's what I'm here for. This video will focus solely on getting you to understand what the hell is going on. Think of this as a way to get back on track with Warframe lore. At least a summary on the past couple updates to prepare you for 1999. In this video, I will refrain from speculation, mostly. That is for later videos. We have a few months before 1999's release. Anything goes in Warframe right now, and that's a scary concept to grasp once you understand. So where did we leave off? We not only discovered that Stalker is indeed a Warframe and the father of a pure Warframe. Now when I say pure Warframe, I just mean this baby is a Warframe from birth. Stalker has since fled with this child to parts unknown. This has implications to the future of our war with the Man in the Wall, since we haven't an inkling of what that baby's potential is. This is not too important to the story at hand, but it is still worth mentioning. I had a video fully written on the Jade Quest, but I was neck deep in Elden Ring lore, so I omitted that video. Don't judge me. Let's rewind to the Whisper in the Walls. This is when we learned about all the exploits of Albrecht Entrati. He has by far the most conclusive research of the Man in the Wall to date. We also learn that because he is either the first or one of the first entities to knowingly make contact with it, he is being chased by it. Aside from his plight, the most relevant piece of research is that of Entrati's time-traveling exploits, going back to Plague Year, assumed to be 1999, and heal, quotation marks, a chosen few. He did this using his knowledge and acquisition of the Helminth, the augmented technocyte virus strain used to create Warframes, trademarked by Ballas. Seriously? You sick f***? Entrati changed the Helminth though, or from my perspective, he perfected it, allowing the new proto-frames to maintain complete consciousness whilst using their newfound abilities. That in itself could be speculation because we do not know the negatives of becoming a proto-frame. From what we know so far, there does not seem to be many compared to their Warframe counterparts. Now for us to transition into dissecting some of what was shown during Tennocon 2024. You all need to understand Warframe's version of time travel, because it's messy. Very messy, I believe. Time travel is a very difficult story element to nail correctly because it almost always leaves your audience confused, unless the explanation is shown at a somewhat expert level of delivery and understanding. My personal gripes aside, Warframe 1999 is not the 1999 of our timeline in Warframe. That is not how time works. Theoretically. It would make it far simpler to explain, and it is my preferred method if I am writing a story that involves time travel, but I digress. The 1999 we are going back to is an alternate timeline at the very least for right now. I say this because 1999 could be released later this year and very well prove me completely wrong. When Entrati went back in time to test his new version of the Helminth strain, he went back to 1999 in Timeline A, which is the timeline we are familiar with, and once he meddled with those infected with the OG Technocyte virus, he created Timeline B, which is where we now need to go. Because if we just go back in time in our reality, we will end up doing the same exact thing that Albrecht did, creating Timeline C. Regardless, we end up creating Timeline D because we are going to go back in Timeline B and try to save Albrecht. Furthermore, there will be a Timeline E through infinity based on different possible outcomes. You confused yet? The point I'm trying to make here is if Albrecht truly went back in time to change the past, one or two has to be true. A, there is going to be some sort of correcting event in our timeline that makes sure everything happens how it's supposed to. So that means you could forego my prior explanation of how time works. B, Albrecht is creating another timeline entirely, and that is now screwing with the space-time continuum, desperately trying to fix all that he started no matter what the cost. let's continue with the gameplay.
Not again! Bastard!
Welcome to 1999.
Starting off with the song that is very clearly about infested, Arthur's hand is overtaken by the indifference to type a message that he thinks would lead him to Entrati, who he refers to as Dr. Entrati. Don't be late. A running theme of the Albrecht doppelganger, it seems. We then meet the Hex, a faction of proto-frames that are dedicated to Albrecht assumedly for curing them of tech rot. Tech rot being an early version of the technocyte virus.
How's she doing?
If she wasn't your blood, she'd be on her own out there.
Got a lead in Entrati. Sewers. Arse deep in tech rot, most likely. I'm going after him. For all our sakes. Letty, look, if you've taken my keys again...
In the dialogue here, Arthur says, "for all our sakes," over recovering Eleanor or Nyx. Now this ties to what I said earlier about the proto-frames, addressing their stability. Do they need something constantly to survive, or is he talking about the fate of the world resting on Entrati curing them? The Hex refers to Entrati as Dr. Entrati after all.
To show its face at night. Didn't the bastard doctor warn you? I've an order. Kill on sight.
Later, we see a new enemy faction using something called Efervo. So let's talk about Efervo, similar to Enfuron from Dark Sector, a chemical lethal to the technocyte virus. Do I think this green substance used by this faction of soldiers does the same thing? Yes. Simply because if you know the history of Warframe, a lot of the ideas are derivative of Dark Sector. Technically, it is the other way around, as DE wanted to make Warframe first. This faction using Efervo likely came about after the technocyte virus took hold in Holvania. The evidence of this is in the hazmat structures you would see in an epidemic. You enter this bubble-like structure before entering the building. Letty or Trinity also mentions its corrosive properties and how she would not be able to heal it properly. I know. I said I wasn't going to speculate. But a crownless king clad in gold, a pallid beast licking his hands. Kalemos resembles a sphinx, which in Egyptian culture was used to represent royalty. along with it literally being clad in gold. Crownless, I imagine, can mean without the hat we know Albrecht for wearing. Am I tripping? I just need to know. Most likely, it is a reference to either Albrecht's drive to correct his wrongs or his Orokin descent. Time will tell. Albrecht was Kalimos the whole time. Video coming soon.
Arthur, you're right by a security terminal. Bet my butt it's got a coda worm injector. You want to risk it to control some tech rot?
Well, let's find out then. Needs must and all that.
A very interesting mention by our buddy Volt here. He talks about being able to control the tech rot with a coda worm injector, which begs the question of the infested being controlled with some form of software. If I am correct, then that may mean that someone is possibly controlling the infested.
Entrati, what devils follow you?
This is the second most interesting thing in this entire reveal. This moment may have answered my question of how we get to 1999, but it may mean an insane amount more than you think. The very first question I had when 1999 was revealed to be where we are headed in Warframe was how. We saw at the very beginning of the Whisper in the Walls quest that Albrecht's time machine was destroyed, and I don't think time travel was a particularly popular or possible with all the Orokin. So we definitely couldn't just fix it or find another one. This shows that the infested might be the answer, and if they are, infested might have a temporal connection to one another. That alone is an absolutely gargantuan find, if I'm right. Or it could mean Warframes are being produced by the infested, and I don't think I need to tell you how that could be a bad thing. Now let's move on to my favorite thing.
Don't take this out on me!
In my video explaining everything about the infested, I mentioned an infested super strain. Technocyte Coda may be that strain, with an ability to break the temporal barrier, bringing things from the past to the present. What I mean by temporal barrier is whatever is stopping things from different times from interacting. Albrecht's time machine is an example of something that would break the temporal barrier. Just from observing this, one could tell that this lich system is going to be a bit different, maybe hunting down groups or subspecies of infested instead of a singular entity. Either way, This alone could prove that the infested have a power that does not come from the Tenno at all. They may not need the operator to be a battery. The infested may only need to be attuned to the void in some capacity. Stalker, Umbra, Jade, the Hex. We've been shown so many cases of the infested using superpowers that did not need any help from the Tenno. I can only hope that 1999 will explore how strong the infested actually are. Before the end of this video, I'd like to say that there are definitely 1,000 more implications that I did not mention. But since I know many playing Warframe don't even get what's going on half the time, I aim to inform and explain. For now. I hope this helped. I'll see you with another story.